Brains Dark.
Life is too short to be drinking shitty beer.
Welcome to another edition of Bands, Bikes and Booze Reviews. This is the first beer review I've done in a while, even though I've been posting up reviews and it looks like I've been drinking every day. I haven't. I've been working on the studio and I'm absolutely fucked, and I've come to the realisation that manual labour is not for me. As soon as this is all finished, I will never pick up another fucking tool as long as I live, because it is fucking killing me. Anyway, been working on the studio a day doing plasterboarding, and I've come to the conclusion that I'm not a taper and jointer, if you know what I mean. So again, once this is done, I will never even look at a plasterboard or think about putting one up, because it's got better. My mate lent me a laser level, and if you're in any way connected or you want to do some building work, get yourself a laser level. They are worth their weight in gold. They are fantastic inventions. Whoever invented them, absolute fucking genius. Years ago, I was doing some air conditioning work, duct work, and I always thought, when I was putting up, I was using stuff, it was called 800mm spiral. It was like a metal tubing, but it had like a spiral rib going around it to support it, and it was for the air conditioning. And it was actually on Terminal 4 in Heathrow Airport. And yeah, some journey that was every day. And when I was putting it up, I always thought to myself, because you'd be starting at one end and you'd have this long spiral, and it had to meet up with another piece of spiral at the other end. And I remember thinking, if only there was some sort of level that you could line it up against. And I sort of had the idea, the thought of using a laser though, I mean, I'm talking sort of mid-80s here, so yeah, very much needed indeed. And I used one the other day after a mate said to me, when I was struggling to find all the uprights to put the screws in for the plasterboard, and he lent me the laser level, and it just revolutionised it and made it a whole lot quicker. So there is progress. There will be a video up soon. Watch this space. Anyway, enough about that. Let's get on to this stuff. Now, this is the Brains Dark, and from what I can gather, I'm looking at it, and it's a mild from the description and what's gone into it. So I'll get onto that in a bit. Just a little bit about the brewery first. Brains are a very old Welsh brewery. They're based in Cardiff. Now, years ago, talking of the late 80s and the early 90s, I used to knock about in Cardiff. I didn't live there. I had a mate who lived down here, and he used to come to West Ham with me and go to the occasional away game, and he said, why don't you start coming away with Cardiff? And I did, and I followed Cardiff. I didn't follow them, I just used to go to a lot of away games, and used to go to a lot of their home games down in Cardiff. And they were fucking wild times, absolutely mental times. They really were. Cardiff City, their fans were on another level back then. If you know, in the 80s, if it was West Ham who was the top firm in the country, I would have put Cardiff City at that time up against anyone. They were absolute head cases. Nobody messed with them, and they had a massive, huge following. And honestly, I've got some great memories of going down there. And one thing I do remember is drinking Brains SA and Hurliman's. Now, Hurliman's at the moment is brewed by Shepherd Neame, but I think back then it must have been brewed by Brains. But it was certainly available down there. I can't remember if it was Brains that were brewing it. I remember drinking Brains SA, I think it was called, and it was nicknamed Skull Attack or something like that, some crazy name. But I do remember it being a good beer, and there were a lot of pubs in Cardiff selling it, as you would expect, and it's always had links with Welsh rugby. And of course, if you're a rugby fan, to be honest, I'm not too much of a rugby fan, but if you are, you'll obviously know that Brains do sponsor the Welsh national rugby team. Now, the last time I had a Brains beer was in the London Welsh Centre. There is a, believe it or not, there is a London Welsh Centre in Clerkenwell in London, and I work with a fella who's Welsh. He's from Ebervale, and we went there to watch a football match. It was what Wales, I can't remember who Wales were playing. We went down there, but they had a load of bottled Brains beer, and I went through the whole lot, and there was some absolutely fantastic stuff, and for the life of me I can't remember what it was they were selling, because I was so drunk by the end of the night that it's all a blur. But needless to say, I do have a lot of respect for the Brains Brewery. They do brew some good beer, and they're a family-run brewery. They've been going since 1882, and founded in Cardiff in 1882, and they're still going strong now. They did, believe it or not, they did delve into coffee shops. They bought a stake in, I think it's Number One Coffee, I think it's called, in 2011, and they jacked it in as a bad job and sold it off to Cafe Nero, I think it is. I used to know a girl who worked for Cafe Nero. She said they were, well, I won't say what she said about them, but yeah, put it this way, she didn't like working for them. Italian girl, very nice girl, and yeah, she absolutely pandered. But they bought out Brains' stake in Number One Coffee, and I think they've turned them into Cafe Nero coffee shops now. But they do some good beers, as I say, and there's a wide variety of beers that they do. They do a lager, they do this, they're mild, they do the SA, which is a I wouldn't say it's a bitter, I say it's an ale, and there's some others as well whose name escapes me now, but yeah, generally good beer. Now, I do remember Lidl had some of their craft lager. They did a craft lager, and I reviewed it on the channel. It was one of the first reviews I ever did. It's very cheap. It was only £1.50 or something for a 330ml, and it wasn't too bad. It was a little bit different. I didn't think it was that bad. It had a bit of a sour taste to it, which, a bit like in sour beer that I do, it did give it it was almost like a Keller beer, put it that way. That's what I'm trying to get across. But it was good, and this is where I got this from, Lidl's. They are now selling this. I'm sure if you look on BeerTube, you will see a lot of people reviewing this because it's available in Lidl's, and here I am reviewing it. So without further ado, let's shut up and let's investigate this beer. Okay, it's a 500ml bottle. It's 4.1%. Now, the reason I'm calling it a mild, or to me it looks like a mild, if you listen to the description, it says, a true classic, Brains Dark has been brewed continuously since the 1920s and is still winning awards today. Chocolate malts help create this treacle-coloured yet easy drinking ale with its distinctive creamy head, with a deep intense flavour containing hints of licorice and freshly ground coffee. Brains Dark goes with traditional chocolate desserts. Now, if that was a porter or a stout, I'm sure they would have said so. Brains do their own stout, so as far as I can tell, this is a mild, or it's aping the style of a mild. And yeah, it's just got the ingredients: water, barley, malt, hops, and that's it. I'm sure there must be invert sugar in here and some other adjuncts as well. SA Brain, Dragon Brewery, yeah, it's called the Dragon Brewery, Pacific Road, Cardiff. Yeah, Dragon Brewery, Cardiff. There you go. And there is a nice dragon on the cap there. The Welsh Dragon. Let's get it open. Let's see what's going on. Right. Cap. If you ever go down to Wales, make sure you bring an umbrella. I have been down there several times and I don't recall once it being sunny. It always rained. Certainly in South Wales anyway. Right, here it is in the glass now. I've given that a bit of an aggressive pour. And I've effed that up royally. Now it really does look like a porter. And the head is highly carbonated. What are we getting on the nose? Let's give it a blast. There's definitely some aroma there. The coffee and the chocolate. Yeah, they're the two big aromas. And in a blindfold test, you would swear that is a porter. but the description really doesn't sound like a porter. Not getting the licorice on the aroma. It's just coffee, dark chocolate, roasted malt. You get the vibe. Okay. So my initial classification of it being a mild could be completely wrong, because it smells suspiciously like a porter. And if I look at that, that is really dark. There is no hint of ruby in that whatsoever. Okay, let's get it down the hatch. Bottoms up. That's not bad. And it is a mild. It's definitely a mild. That's not porter at all. When they say easy drinking, they've got that spot on. And mild is an easy drinking beer. Now the body on this, despite its looks, is, I wouldn't say weak. It's not strong, if you know what I mean. It's just sort of middling. It's quite smooth. Not much carbonation in there, but not as smooth as a porter. But the flavours that I was getting on the aroma, the chocolate, the coffee, they are there, but they're subtle, and that is classic mild in my opinion, and it ain't bad. And I can see why, and I'm glad they put this into Lidl's, because mild in my opinion is a fantastic style of beer if it's done right, and it needs to be promoted again, I think, because if you get a mild that's done right, and if you want to taste one, I recommend the Elgoods. That's the best I've ever had as a mild, and there's some good ones. Hook Norton do a good mild. Thwaites do a reasonably good mild, surprisingly, and this isn't bad. But for me, the Elgood stuff is head and shoulders above everything. This has got all the characteristics of a really decent mild. Not massive flavours. The emphasis is more on drinkability than flavour, but there is some flavour there, don't get me wrong. The ABV 4.1, that is perfect, and it's the sort of drink that you'd go into a pub, and if you sort of got to the pub early afternoon, usually winter unless it's served really cold, but usually winter, and you wanted to stay a little bit longer, this would be the perfect beer. And it's not bad at all, I have to say. I'm getting them little hints of licorice on there now. That's coming through, or it's trying to come through, but there's much more chocolate, dark chocolate, and slight coffee on there as well. Not much hop character at all, which is about right. This is quite cold. I'm going to let it settle down, warm up a little bit, and see what other flavours I can get. Watch this space. Right, it's warmed up a little bit. Let's give it another go. Even more roasted malt flavours. And it's, when you when you try it like that, it's bordering on the porter, but the body just gives it away for being a mild. It's really drinkable, I will say that. I have to say that is not bad at all. That is a really good attempt. At no point on this bottle does it say it's mild. In fact, it doesn't even classify it at all. But that just hasn't got the body to be a porter or a stout. And the flavours are quite subdued, but they're still there. Even more so now. When I tried it beforehand, it was chilled. I've let it warm up now. It's more or less cellar temperature now. Maybe even a little bit warmer, but there's tons of flavour on this. I have to say that is very agreeable indeed. A really good mild, and it delivers everything that a good mild should do. The flavour's there. Not too overpowering, light body, reasonably light mouthfeel, low ABV. The perfect winter session drink, in my opinion. Yeah, that's a really good attempt from Brains. I'm liking that. So what's the verdict on Brains Dark? Yeah, it's good. I will say, I don't think it's as good as the Elgood Mild. The Black Dog stuff, for me, that was absolutely outstanding. But this does have a lot of good qualities going for it. Now, if I were to compare this to, say, the Harvey's Dark Mild from the bottle, the Harvey's Dark Mild, and even the Timothy Taylor Landlord Dark, I mean, you could argue that the Landlord Dark is a mild of some description. They weren't that big on flavour. Now, don't get me wrong, milds are not supposed to be bursting with flavour, but they do have to have something going for them, and they do have to be light, they do have to be low ABV, but ultimately they have to be drinkable. And this has got all of them qualities in abundance, whereas the Landlord Dark and the Harvey's Dark Mild didn't have that, and it was they were pretty disappointing. But I have to say, this is possibly the second best mild that I've tried so far. Is it as good as the Hook Norton Mild? It's a tough one. Maybe one for a comparison video. I'd really need to shoot them out. Again, as I'm going to reiterate this point, it's not as good as the Elgood, but this is cheap. I got it from Lidl, and it was under £2. It was, I think it was about £1.50 to £1.40, something like that. I can't remember the exact price. I bought quite a few beers at the same time as that. I started doing the Shepherd Neame India Pale Ale down there. I bought a few bottles of that, and that was dirt cheap. Spitfire down there is dirt cheap. All the Shepherd Neame stuff, apart from the 1698, which they used to sell but they don't sell anymore, is very cheap down there. But I'm liking this, and do you know what? I'm gonna give this an 8.5 out of 10. If mild is your thing, then get your ass down to Lidl's and buy up some of this, because this is a very good quality mild. If you like porters and you like stouts, you're going to like this as well. So if you want an easy drinking, light, low ABV porter for not a lot of money, then again, this could fill your criteria. Obviously the flavours won't be as big, but you'll get lots of roasted malt, you'll get lots of chocolate, you'll get some coffee on there, you'll get a nice mouthfeel, and ultimately you'll get a very good pint of beer. So I'm going to give that an 8.5 out of 10, a solid 8.5 out of 10. I'm definitely going to buy some more of this when I get my arse down to Lidl's again. I was hoping somebody told, the only reason I went down to Lidl's was somebody told me they had the Fest beer in 99p a can for that Lidl's Fest beer, which is absolutely superb value. The wheat beer is pretty good as well for the money, 99p, you can't go wrong with that. But this ain't bad. They've got some other beers down there if you're into craft beers and stuff like that. Avoid the dry gate stuff, that's just dog shit stuff, don't bother. They've got some salt brewing stuff down there. I can't remember the other craft brewery beer that they've got down there, but if that's your thing, they've got some more of that stuff down there as well. But get some of this is really good. So I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10, and I'm definitely going to recommend it. And remember, beer is working class champagne.